Alakazam, Alakazooj. This game is surprisingly huge. From gameplay to open world to customization, this game just seems to go and go and go. I hope I'm able to cover it all properly. No spoilers, enjoy the review, and subscribe if you haven't. Okay, so this game is pretty cool. It does a lot of things very well and is an interesting experience for sure. The game starts with your average character customization, and it's alright, not too crazy in depth. The look and options they give are varied enough to where you can make some semblance of yourself, but don't go in here expecting Elden Ring levels of customization. Believe me, with a character name like Bingus Binglebottom, I tried to make the ugliest character I could, but with no such luck. Bad game, -4 out of 10, don't buy. The end. Just kidding. After the customization, you're thrown into the adventure, taught basic spells and basic combat loop, and you're off. Sort of. I'll explain in a bit. For now, let's focus on one of the big aspects of the game, and that is the combat. The combat in this game is fantastic actually, and the best way I can describe it, it's a more complex rock, paper, scissors, which might sound weird, but once it gets going, you really start to enjoy it. You're actually given a pretty good variety of spells. Purple and yellow are generally for crowd control, red and green are for damage, blue and light green are for exploration or customization. You gain new spells by attending classes throughout the game, completing assignments for various professors, as well as helping other characters with their side quests. More on that later. Your main use of spells in a combat scenario are damage and crowd control spells. Enemies have different colored shields which need the appropriate spell to break them, and then they can be damaged. It works out pretty well, and what makes it even better is that every spell has its own unique effect, and the effects generally vary quite a bit. For example, an enemy could be flipped upside down in the air and then slammed down with a powerful combo. You could also explode a group of enemies with a big AoE damage spell. The possibilities are not necessarily endless, but they do offer a lot of variety, and you can tailor them to be as stylish as you want it. It was very satisfying, to be honest. Surprisingly, the game is not just spell spamming and hoping for the best. As you go further in the game, you actually have to be more aware of what spells you're casting and who you cast them on. The devs made a really good decision here by making the enemies become more formidable, varied, and attack you in greater numbers as you explore. Spamming spells without any thought will leave you stuck in a combat scenario with no options besides your basic attack until your spells are ready again. Now, the cooldown for those spells isn't generally too long, but it is something to be aware of. When you're not throwing out spells, you're either dodging or parrying the enemy's spells back at them. Which one you do depends on the spell that they throw out. Another aspect of combat that the game does really well is the ancient magic system. Your character has access to some pretty neat ancient magic finishers that you gain access to the better you do in combat. Higher combos means more energy, and more energies means more finishers. The finishers generally finish off most enemies and do a great deal of damage to more powerful ones. I will say that in combat you have the option to use consumables as well. They help a lot in a fight, but personally I didn't really use them because I didn't think the system was very fleshed out, but more on that later. I think the combat really shines when you're facing a lot of enemies at once. You have to dodge, parry, counterspell, and crouch control enemies in a way that requires you to act quickly and intelligently. Honestly, combat with groups of enemies was just a lot of fun. You'd counterspell, disarm people, throw those weapons back at people. It just felt really nice to be able to whip around and zip and zoop on these enemies. The combat is fun when you're fighting a bunch of enemies. Unfortunately, I don't think the boss fights and fights with bigger enemies were executed very well. Boss fights felt really bullet spongy, and the majority of your CC spells are kind of rendered useless due to the fact that they're too big to be affected by it, except for very certain situations. But because the boss is very bullet spongy, I was busy trying to whittle his health down and I'd get hit off screen by an enemy. It would kind of make me wish that cameras pulled back a little bit more, but that's neither here nor there. The bigger issue was that the bosses were not very well designed in my opinion. Basically, regular combo with enemies, good. Boss fights and mini bosses, meh, not so good. But thankfully the game puts a lot more regular combat in this game than boss combat, so I got a good balance of what I wanted. Overall, combat in this game gets a big old check for me. It's fun, varied, and as complex as it needs to be in order to provide an engaging yet challenging experience. I played this game on hard and I was very glad I did so. In my opinion, the combat really takes it to the next level with talent points. After a few story missions, you unlock the ability to spend points to enhance certain spells and playstyles. They're pretty powerful and help you take down enemies a lot more efficiently, as well as give you a bit more oomph. Outside of combat, you're gathering resources, gear, as well as exploring the open world and talking to NPCs about what they do and solving puzzles. More on the puzzles and NPCs in the world and story review section. As for the gear and resource gathering, this is where the game does not do so well. As you're exploring the world, you get access to resources that you can use to craft potions and upgrade your gear. They can be in caves, on the floor, through quests, whatever it is. The potions are pretty good and actually do a good job of adding to your arsenal to make you even more powerful. Now, to gain access to these potions, you have to either make them with resources you've gathered, or you can buy small amounts from vendors around the world. And honestly, that part works out fine. Combat would be trivial if you could easily access all these potions and have an unlimited supply just ready to go. I like how they balance that aspect of it. However, this is where it gets a little weird because they make you craft the healing potion as well. You could buy some, but again, each shopkeep has a max of 2 to 3, and that's if they have it. It's made of 2 ingredients, one of which you can harvest in your own private room and grow yourself, which is fine, but the other you have to go out and search for in the open world. Here's the fun part. Healing is actually consumable, meaning if you make a potion, use it, that potion is spent. It doesn't matter if you have the resources in your inventory to remake it, you gotta go back to your room and remake it. The loop is as follows. Use potions, go back to your room to make more potions. Don't have the materials? Go out and either buy some or harvest them from the open world. Come back, create the potions, and then restart the loop. By the way, you do have to wait for these potions to be finished. It's not like you have the materials and instantly craft it. No, you gotta wait for each potion to be made. You can make multiple at once, but there's still 15 seconds of wait time that I have to do if I want these potions. Why they designed it this way, I don't really understand. I get that it's part of the world, but I was kind of annoyed about it. On paper, it doesn't sound so bad, but in execution, this aspect of the game really falls flat for me. I don't want to have to wait and or forage for healing items, which are vital if I'm trying to go out and enjoy the actual world and combat. It puts a weird pacing and hold on playing the actual game. Besides crafting potions, you can also use materials to upgrade your gear, which is nice, but if I'm being honest, was a little waste of time. Sure, you could spend some time going out, capturing beasts, harvesting materials, and all that jazz. And that's great if you enjoy it, no shame in that. But the way that the gear system is designed, I don't know if I would want to waste time doing all that when I can just go out, explore for 5 minutes, and find something much better anyways. Gear in this game can sometimes have attributes attached to them, or you can add the attributes yourself in your private room. And sometimes the attributes are neat. They make some spells stronger, they make your defenses stronger, what have you. But why would I keep the one with the attribute when this other piece of gear I just found has better numbers associated with it, making you hit harder and last a bit longer? I do think the devs know that this part of the game is a little weird because they do allow you to transfer attributes and or upgrade your current gear with beast materials. But you have to go out, capture the beast, harvest the materials, and just spend more time on it that I personally did not want to do. Because, like I said before, I could just find a new piece of gear that was better within 5 minutes of exploring. The gear system in general is just not very well designed. When you're using gear, the most thing you're concerned with is making your 3 stats increase: health, armor, and offense. None of which are really explained except for the premise of make number go up. I think if they changed up the balancing to make you more incentivized to pick gear with traits attached to it versus gear that's numerically better, I think everything would have flowed together a little bit. But the way that the traits are handled, the improvement is marginal at best in my experience. However, some of the stuff you can do with the gear system is very neat, and I kind of wish other games did it as well. You can make yourself look like you're wearing any piece of gear you have found in the world, even if you don't have it in your inventory. And that's a great experience. Let me have the best stats while looking as cool or as stupid as I would like. But like I said before, the gear system is just not very well designed in my opinion. After a certain point, I wouldn't even bother opening chests because I just didn't want new gear. And if I picked up gear, I would just sell it, which is also not very well executed. You get a lot of money in this game, like quite a bit, from selling gear, completing quests, or exploring, and there's a lot of gold to be earned, with very little to spend it on. Not that every game has to have a compelling shop and economy system, I just didn't know what to do with all the gold. Resources were very limited from shopkeeps, gear was never better, and customization options only go so far. All that aside, the game had some fun elements to it. Unfortunately, the biggest issue I had with the game is that this game is not optimized for PC at all. From lag spikes to making my entire computer freeze up and slow to a crawl, the performance was subpar in a lot of sections. And the thing is, my computer is a pretty beefy boy, well above the recommended requirements, and yet I was still facing issues. As of February 28th, this game is an unoptimized PC port and really suffers for it. There were sections where the game would lag to about 10 to 15 frames a second, which has not happened to any game on my system in a long time. And this issue becomes worse when you get later in the game. Some areas with a lot of enemies stutter and chug until I'm killed in the fight. And the worst part is that this issue is not consistent. I would often reload the fight, come back in, absolutely no lag. And then, if I were to go back to the same area and try it again, the stuttering would come back. It is especially bad in Hogwarts. Yeah, the same place that the game is named after. Imagine being told to explore the world only to be met with 10 frames and audio processing issues. All in all, I really think this game desperately needs an optimization patch before I can recommend it on PC specifically. But other than those points, the game from a gameplay standpoint was pretty fun in a lot of aspects and was amplified by an in-depth and well built out world and story. Okay, so in my opinion, this is where the game really shines. If you're a Harry Potter fan, this whole section, this is for you. The world, story, and care the devs took to make this a true Wizarding World experience is very impressive. The game starts you off in Hogwarts, and you spend a bit of time there learning how to navigate and your basic exploration rules and such. Hogwarts itself actually has a lot to offer, and I definitely recommend exploring it. Depending on whatever house you choose, you get to access a specific common room, and sometimes the story missions change depending on what house you pick. It's really neat. Nothing too drastic, but it's nice the designers of this game threw that detail in there. As you explore the school, you get to talk to various NPCs, from teachers to students to house elves to even ghosts. There are a lot of people to talk to and learn about the world. Even the people who give you side quests usually have extra dialogue options that you can ask them to learn more about the world if you want. It's not necessary, but very well done. Interacting with the professors was especially fun. They required you to go to some classes, which was super neat. They do have a little mini montage of you attending the class, learning from the professor, talking to other students, and after, they usually have a new spell to teach you. And here is you can ask the professors about their life, what they do, their history, all that kind of stuff. Everyone felt pretty unique and well built out. Their motivations and all that stuff for helping you is very interesting. It actually felt as though Hogwarts itself had a personality as well. Various puzzles you can solve, different things to explore, different ghosts to talk to, all of it kind of meshed well together. The puzzles you can solve and get a piece of gear or cosmetic item. Gear wasn't always the best, but it felt fun to solve puzzles here and there. They're varied and spread out enough to not feel too frequent or too simple. And if you explore enough and have an idea of where to go, you could find Easter eggs from the books and movies. It was a nice homage. A few hours into the game, you're introduced to the Room of Requirement. This is the area where you can craft potions, enhance your gear, take care of your beasts, and customize the room to your liking. It's a neat system and it allows for a lot of customization. When this system was first introduced, I spent like 2 hours customizing and running around the world to get more resources so I could customize even more. I honestly have no idea why. I didn't even spend that much time in the room, but I really enjoyed it for some reason. Now, the open world is also super cool. You get to leave Hogwarts after about 3 or so hours, but that can be stretched to 6 if you're really exploring. The entire beginning exploration is a huge tutorial, but more on that later. After you leave Hogwarts, you get to explore wherever you want. Out in the world, there are tons of things to do, from fighting dark wizards, saving beasts, helping people in towns with their side quests, puzzles, cave exploration. The world is massive. Not as big as Breath of the Wild, for example, but big and varied enough for you to spend hours exploring. When I look back at this game, I realized that a lot of my time was spent running around, fighting dark wizards, solving puzzles, doing side quests, and that was where the game really shined. The open world is a lot of fun to explore, and I really enjoyed goofing off and just jumping around like a dingus. I know the world was ending in the story, but honestly, didn't really care. I kind of just wanted to do my own thing. A quick side note about the story, I won't say much to avoid spoilers, but it's a very nice, well-rounded story in that you get a lot of moments from the books and the movies crammed into here so that you have your unique moments with your character. You feel really cool and it's very well executed in my opinion. Okay, back to the world. Little hamlets are spread throughout the world and they all have unique shopkeepers as well as quests and puzzles for you to solve. There's a lot to do in the open world. The game also has a lot of collectibles. And what's interesting about the collectible stuff is that they're introducing new things for you to grab right near the end of the game, or rather near the end of the story missions, which is a neat placement because it gives you stuff to do after you beat the story, so, don't be worried about running out of things to do, there are plenty. If you're a Harry Potter fan, books or movies, and know the lore pretty well, the story does a great job of nodding to and enhancing the original material. There's a ton of stuff that connects to the world and builds it out even more. It's a nice touch and it shows that they paid attention to detail. The game does a great job of making you feel like you're a Hogwarts student, attending classes, meeting professors and other students, exploring the world outside of Hogwarts, fighting off dark wizards, and solving puzzles all feel fun to do and accomplish. Like I said before, this game is dense. According to Steam, I sunk in about 55 hours into it, and even then, I did not do every single thing in it. I think the completion rating I got was about 68%. I also mentioned that this game has a pretty long tutorial. And that tutorial is broken up by side missions, so it doesn't feel that long, but realistically, 10 hours into the game, they're still introducing vital mechanics for you to use while you play through it. As I was playing through the game, I noticed this pacing was consistent with a lot of stuff. Learning new mechanics, exploring new enemies, all that kind of stuff was introduced piecemeal. And I actually didn't mind that, to be honest. They space it out well enough to where when you are able to fully grasp a new concept, they go ahead and add more to keep it fresh and new. And I think the reasoning and philosophy for doing so is very neat. Let me explain. This game is made for fans of Harry Potter, plain and simple. They took a world, built it out, and dropped you in it and said, go explore. And for anyone who's really into Harry Potter, this is the game for you. I personally felt as though the developers and designers of this game really understood that not every Harry Potter fan is somebody who plays games regularly. And so the challenge becomes, how do you design a game for that type of person? Well, you do what they did here. You build an experience dedicated to fulfilling that Harry Potter fantasy while also having a fun game underneath. The reason the tutorial and learning new concepts is so spread out is because it makes it easier to digest for people who do not regularly play games. You can easily jump into this game with no video game experience at all and thoroughly enjoy yourself because the game designers knew what that person was looking for. In terms of game design, it is a fantastic example of creating a unique experience built on a pre-established world that has a very low barrier of entry while still creating a fulfilling experience. I believe that if you're thinking about getting this game, first things first, do not get this game on PC. This is a console experience through and through. If you don't have a console and only a PC, you should wait until there's a massive performance patch because it is a very bad experience at times. Now, this game has a lot to offer, but I genuinely think that this game deserves 2 scores. If you're a Harry Potter fan and like the world the game is based on, then this game is a 9 out of 10 or even maybe a 10 out of 10 for you. It's well worth the full price, it's massive, has plenty to offer, and for someone who's looking to fulfill that fantasy, this is it. But if you're someone who's more critical about the games they consume, then I would say that this game has a few things you can work on. However, the things like combat and world exploration are done very well. And I think that the sheer amount of content here is insane. If you're looking for a 25 to 40 hour open world adventure with fun combat, an expansive open world, and don't mind some clunky implementations of gear and consumables, this game is for you. I'm giving Hogwarts Legacy an 8 out of 10, an experience that focuses on bringing the magic of the wizarding world to life, warts and all. And I also think this game is worth it at full price. There's a ton of content and you very easily get your money's worth. What did you think about Hogwarts Legacy? Which house did you pick? If it's Ravenclaw, congrats, you're a nerd. All in all, I had fun with this game. I don't know if I would play it again though, just because it's so dense, but it was still a great experience. Small side note, I know a lot of people are coming into this game thinking they can get Avada Kedavra right at the start. Unfortunately, you get it near the end, but as soon as I got it, I went on a killing spree. It was a ton of fun, and I don't think any dark wizard felt safe when I was out there. Thanks for watching. You should subscribe. No? Oh. That's fine, I guess. Let me just,